Today's topic is adaptations in hydrophyte. So firstly, what is meant by the adaptation? That we have to know. What is ecological adaptations? So ecological adaptations, that is the plants that survive in many extreme environmental conditions. So that is called to be as the particularly stress, and that stress to take over, they develop specialized characters and they are called to be as the adaptations. So in order to survive in such environment, these plants needs to have adapt. So that is called to be as the ecological adaptations. So any character of the plant or its part which enable it to exist under conditions, certain conditions are there of its habitat, is called to be as the plant adaptation. Plant react with their environment and they bear a specific character in which they grow. So each and every plant is showing interaction with their environment, and they develop specialized character to grow inside the specialized environment. So plant, in order to face adverse condition of the environment and utilize to their maximum benefit the nutrients and other therein, so the plants develop certain morphological, anatomical and physiological or reproductive changes or features, and that is called to be as the adaptations. So plant adaptations are takes place at the morphological level, anatomical level or physiological level. So all these are adaptations that is called to be as the ecological adaptation. So just like a warning in the year of 1909 has been classified on the basis of the amount of water amount of water that is present in the particularly soil, present in the soil. Plants were classified into following different groups, that is hydrophytes, then mesophytes and then xerophytes. So hydrophytes are the plants growing in or near water, are called to be as the hydrophytes. Plants that occur in water, for example here the Hydrilla, Nymphaea, Pistia, Lemna, Ulfia, they are called to be as the hydrophytes. Then mesophytes are those plants which prefer to grow in the habitat that are either too dry or not too wet. जिथे जास्त पाणी नाही आणि जास्त ड्राय पण नाही, अशी जी कंडिशन्स आहे, नॉर्मल कंडिशन, that is moderate amount of water is available, which means the oxygen supply to root is also moderate, and because of that those plants are unable to grow in wet and damp soil. So such plants are called as mesophytes. असे जे plants आहेत त्याला आपण mesophytes असं म्हणतो. Then xerophytes are the plants adapted to dry habitat. So such plants are called to be as the xerophytes. Then halophytes are plants that occur in marshy places or maybe where saline environment is also there. So such particular plants are called as halophytes, or particularly halophytes are there. Halophytes are also same, just like plant growing on the same saline soil, they are called by the halophytes. Then oxalophytes, plant growing on acid soil, they are called as oxalophytes. Or psychorophytes, plants occurring in cold soil, or icy glaciers are there in this region, are called as psychrophiles. Or lithophiles, plant growing on rocks and stones, they are called to be as the lithophiles. Or psammophytes, plants occurring on sand and gravel, they are called to be as the psammophytes. So these are the different adaptations that is occurring in the plant. Now in case of hydrophytic adaptation, some of the morphological changes that occur with the plant, just like we studied out earlier, that plant plant modified their roots also, then stem, and then after the stem structure or petiole structure or leaf structure, and they adapt to that particular watery environment. So they have lots of air spaces in their tissues, just like in case of Nymphaea species, in the leaf of their Nymphaea, we get here the stomata, and below that there is large amount of aerenchyma are nothing but present. This helped them to float in water. So that is called to be as the particularly the adaptations. Then stomata are on the upper surface and have a cuticle on the upper surface to exchange the gases. So that is called to be as the particularly one of the adaptation character. Then stomata are located on upper surface, just like in case of mesophyte or other xerophyte. We see in xerophyte sunken stomata, and in mesophyte the stomata are located on the lower epidermis mostly. But in hydrophyte, the stomata are located on the upper surface and have a cuticle on the upper surface to exchange the gases. Then these plants have very thin cuticle if it is submerged type of hydrophyte. So that is one of the adaptation, morphological adaptation that is seen in case of the hydrophytes. Here some of examples are there, just like in case of Nymphaea, or maybe Ecornia, another plant that is shown, that is called as Ecornia. So in Nymphaea or Ecornia, they are just like called to as the submerged type of rooted hydrophyte. They are the submerged rooted hydrophyte. Ecornia is floating hydrophyte. Then Nymphaea lots of Nymphaea species are there, or maybe Vallisneria species are there. Then these are the Nymphaea also. So or maybe particularly hydrophytile is also, this is the hydrophytile. So all these plants are there, the hydrophytic. Then what are the adaptation, morphological type of adaptation that is seen in case of the hydrophyte? So hydrophytes show various kinds of morphological adaptations in their roots, stem and leaf structure, and particularly in case of the root. In case of the roots of hydrophytes are not of much importance. त्याला काही फार importance नाही, because it is rudimentary, not functional mostly, because plant body itself living in the water. So what is the purpose of root? Root absorb the water along with particularly mineral nutrients from the soil. But here the plant itself growing in water, so here less amount of function is given to root. So because of that, roots are not much importance in case of hydrophyte. And because most hydrophytes are partially or wholly immersed in water, then roots are totally absent in plant, uh, like Utricularia, Ceratophyllum, or Myophyllum, or Salvinia. In this near about to be, they are mostly absent or maybe poorly developed. Just like in case of submerged plant like Hydrilla or Vallisneria, in this plant they are looking to be having poorly developed type of roots. So pocketary roots are found in place of root caps in some of the floating hydrophytes, just like in Ecornia or Pistia. Here what happened? Pocketary roots are nothing but found, and in this there is having large number of air chambers or air sacs. In this, because of that, plant can float on the surface of water. Then root hairs are poorly developed in most hydrophyte. Root hairs just they poorly develop in case of the hydrophytes. Then some plants like JC have two types of roots. One type being normal, but the other spongy type, and another one maybe negatively geotrophic. Other high plant just like JC. In this, two types of roots are there. One is normal type of root that is found to be at the below. Another one is spongy structure, and they are found to be above the soil, water. पाण्याच्या वर डेव्हलप होतात. So that they are the negatively geotrophic. The negatively geotrophic, and these roots are just like help the plant to float on the surface of the water. Waterच्या surface वर float करण्यासाठी ते help करतात. Another one is there, that is the particular adaptation in case of stem, morphological adaptation. Now in the stem, in submerged hydrophyte, the stem is slender, spongy, flexible, and as long is in case of Hydrilla or Potamagaton. So in this it is longer. So that is one of the adaptation that is seen. Then it is spongy and flexible in structure. Spongy and flexible. In some floating hydrophyte like Azolla, Pistia, or Ecornia, it is horizontal or spongy and floating. आता काही मध्ये काय, जस्ट लाईक हजोला मध्ये किंवा पिस्टिया मध्ये किंवा इकॉर्निया मध्ये इट इज हॉरिझॉन्टल. ते हॉरिझॉन्टल आहे. स्पॉन्जी अँड फ्लोटिंग टाईप, ते स्पॉन्जी आणि फ्लोटिंग टाईप मध्ये जनरली त्याच्यामध्ये आपल्याला पर्टिक्युलरली पाहायला मिळतं. Then in rooted hydrophytes like Sagittaria, Cyperus, Cyrus, Potamagaton, the stem is a rhizome type or stolon type, rhizome type or stolon type. So that is one of the change that is seen in case of the some of the hydrophyte. Then in replacement of stem, in some hydrophyte there is a presence of petiole. So stem is not there. In replacement there is petiole. So some hydrophyte have show special feature in the petiole. आपण petiole म्हणजे स्टॉक म्हणतो आपण त्याला, लीफचा जो स्टॉक आहे. So stalk is elongated in case of some of the hydrophyte. So just like petioles in submerged plant with free floating leaves like Nymphaea म्हणजे आपण कमळामध्ये किंवा Nelumbium are long or slender and spongy. या प्लांट मध्ये काय असतं, थोडासा लॉंग असतो, स्लेंडर असतो आणि स्पॉन्जी असतो, containing large number of arenchyma in this or air spaces are in this. In the free floating hydrophyte Ecornia, the petiole is swollen and helps in floating. Petiole जो असतो तो थोडा swollen असतो and helps in floating to the plant. प्लांटला ते फ्लोट करण्यासाठी हेल्प करतो. Then some of the adaptation that is seen in case of the leaves, if we see, the leaves show a number of variation in the structures of their leaf lamina. Particularly leaf lamina च्या स्ट्रक्चर मध्ये थोडासा चेंज याच्यात दिसतो. In submerged hydrophyte like Utricularia or Myriophyllum and Ceratophyllum, the leaves are finely dissected. Leaf कसे finely dissected असतात. And in plants like Vallisneria, they are long and narrow. Vallisneria सारख्या प्लांट मध्ये काय असतात ते लॉंग आणि नॅरो असतात. In both type of adaptation, the intention is to offer little resistance to water current. त्याला वॉटर करंटला ते लिटिल रेजिस्टन्स दाखवतात, म्हणजे जास्त प्रमाणात ती हालचाल करू शकत नाही, अशा काही त्याच्यामध्ये लीफ मध्ये मॉडिफिकेशन. म्हणजे लीफ काय त्या ठिकाणी आकाराने थोडे मोठे राहतात काही ठिकाणी आणि ते फिक्स असतात. इन फ्री फ्लोटिंग हायड्रोफाइट द लीव्स आर स्मूथ. फ्री फ्लोटिंग हायड्रोफाइट जसं उदाहरणार्थ निम्फिया मध्ये लीव्स आर व्हेरी स्मूथ, शायनिंग, कोटेड विथ वॅक्स, वॅक्सी कोटिंग असेल. अँड प्रेझेन्स ऑफ वॅक्स नॉट ओनली प्रिव्हेंट्स वॉटर लॉगिंग, त्याच्यामध्ये वॉटर लॉगिंगला होऊ नये म्हणून सुद्धा प्रोटेक्ट करतं, अँड बट ऑल्सो इट प्रोटेक्ट फ्रॉम फिजिकल अँड केमिकल इंजुरी. आता बरेच वेळा काय असतं, पाण्यामध्ये सॉल्टचं प्रमाण जास्त असतं आणि त्या सॉल्टमुळे प्लांटला इंजुरी होऊ शकतात, सॉल्ट इंजुरी और केमिकल इंजुरी किंवा फिजिकल इंजुरी म्हणजे वॉटर करंटमुळे होणारी इंजुरी जी असेल. टू प्रोटेक्ट फ्रॉम दिस इंजुरी व्हॉट हॅपन हियर, प्लांट्स आर कवर्ड बाय द वॅक्सी कोटिंग. In floating but rooted hydrophytes like Nelumbium, Nymphaea, the petioles are long and the lamina are pelted with their lower surface in the direct contact with water and upper surface exposed to air. जनरली जर आपण आता Nelumbium किंवा Nymphaea मध्ये जर पाहिलं तर पेट्योल हे लॉंग असतात आणि त्याचा जो लॅमिना आहे, लीफचा जो लॅमिना म्हणजे आउटर सरफेस आर पेल्टेड टाइप, थोडासा असा वाकलेला असतो एका बाजूने, with their lower surface in direct contact with water. म्हणजे डायरेक्ट कॉन्टॅक्ट त्याचा वॉटरशी येणार अशा पद्धतीने थोडासा तो वॉटर खालच्या मधल्या भागाने झुकला असतो, आजूबाजूच्या भागाने थोडा वर आला असतो. आणि अपर सरफेस टू एक्सपोज टू एअर, जस्ट लाईक पर्टिक्युलरली वी कॅन सी ॲट हिअर. इथं बघा, इथे दाखवलाय पर्टिक्युलरली मधला भाग हा खाली राहणार आणि साईडचा भाग थोडासा उंच उचललेला असतो, जस्ट लाईक इन दिस यू कॅन क्लिअरली सी. Here leaf lamina, by the leaf lamina surface असेल, so that is to be found to be seen above the water, and the base that is found to be at the particularly base जो असेल तो खालच्या भागाला जनरली त्याच्यामध्ये पाहायला मिळेल. Then so in case of the hydrophyte, particularly these are the morphological adaptations. त्याला आपण morphological adaptations असं म्हणू. In case of root, stem and leaves, and along with the particularly petiole and leaves. So then after some of the points are remaining, just like in floating but rooted hydrophyte like Nelumbium and Nymphaea, the petioles are long and lamina are pelted with their lower surface in direct contact with water and the upper surface exposed to air. One important feature that is usually shown by amphibious hydrophyte is heterophyly. So that is one of the particularly one of the change in case of amphibious. Amphibious means such a hydrophyte which are living in both environment, just like in सराउंडिंग वॉटर, जे पाण्याच्या भोवती वाढतात, पाण्यामध्ये वाढत नाही पण पाण्याच्या भोवती वाढणारे जे आहेत असे जे एम्फिबियस जे हायड्रोफाइट्स आहेत त्यांच्यामध्ये हेट्रोफाइली आहे. हेट्रोफाइली म्हणजे लीफ डायमॉर्फिझम, दॅट इज प्रेझेन्स ऑफ टू टाइप्स ऑफ लीफ, दोन प्रकारचे लीफ दाखवतात, जस्ट लाईक इन सॅजिटेरिया, रेनॅन्कुलस, लिम्नोफायटा, हायड्रोफायला, किंवा मी आता मगाशी म्हणलं जस्ट लाईक पर्टिक्युलर हायड्रोफायटा. So all these are nothing but particularly they are showing such type of heterophyly or having two types of leaf, दोन प्रकारचे लीफ त्याच्यामध्ये दिसतात. काही लीफ असतात ते अबोव ग्राउंड असतात, ते आकाराने थोडे स्मॉलर असतात, आणि जे पाण्यामध्ये फ्लोट होतात ते कसे असतात, आकाराने मोठे राहतात. द सबमर्ज लीव्स आर रिबन शेप, जी सबमर्ज लीव्स आहेत ते रिबन शेपचे असतात, or dissected, and the leaves above the surface of water are broad. जे काही leaves above the surface असतात ते काय असतात, ब्रॉड असतात. Then if we focus on anatomical adaptation, जर आपण anatomical adaptations जर बघितले, in general the hydrophytes show the following trends in anatomical feature, just like in reduction in protecting structure. आता hydrophytes हे plant का itself they are growing in water, so they do not requiring any protecting structure. Then reduction in mechanical tissue, mechanical tissue याच्यामध्ये काय असतात जनरली कमी आहे. Then reduction in conducting tissue, conducting tissue सुद्धा याच्यामध्ये काय असते, कमी असते. Just like xylem is having reduced in structure and phloem is having also not much well developed, so they are reduction in conducting tissue. Then mechanical tissue याच्यामध्ये नाही, just like in mesophyte आपण पाहतो की there is presence of particularly polenchyma or sclerenchyma, but these tissue are absent in the hydrophyte. Increase in aeration, aeration याच्यामध्ये वाढतं. As the above features are seen in most organs of the plant, the anatomical adaptations are better discussed on the basis of such features rather than on the basis of organ. So reduction in protecting structure, this is one of the important adaptation, anatomical adaptation, that is seen the absence of cuticle in the submerged portions of the plant, and use of epidermis as an absorbing or photosynthetic synthesizing organ rather than the protecting organ. Epidermis चा रोल हा photosynthesizing organ आहे, because it has large amount of chloroplast. Originally epidermis मध्ये chloroplast नसतो. In case of mesophyte, chloroplast is located in the spongy parenchyma and palisade parenchyma, but in case of the hydrophyte, epidermis also greeny, so it has a chloroplast, so it function for the photosynthesis. Then poorly developed hypodermis, hypodermis is rarely developed, or if developed it is single layered generally, or 1 to 2 layered only, so it is not well developed. Reduction in mechanical tissue, just like absence of the sclerenchyma or cholenchyma, they are generally found. Astrosclerites, presence of special type of sclerites are there, generally seen in case of hydrophyte, that is internal hairs. Internal hairs असतात, they are present inside the particularly air chambers. आता हे पुढे आपण याच्यामध्ये बघणार आहे, Nymphaea मध्ये येणार आहे. Okay. Then presence of sclerenchyma in little and moderate quantities in some aerial portion. आता काही aerial plant मध्ये sclerenchyma present आहे. Then reduction in vascular tissue, just like vascular bundles are reduced to few or even one and located at the center. Xylem cells are very few, xylem फार कमी असतात, as there is hardly any need of conduction, कारण need of conduction, water conduction जास्त गरज नाही या ठिकाणी, म्हणून xylemची संख्या कमी आहे. Phloem is usually well developed, but in some cases it is poorly developed, but in some cases it is well developed. Just like जर आपण Nymphaea मध्ये पाहिलं तर phloem चांगल्या प्रकारे डेव्हलप झालेला आहे, फ्लोएम बंडल सापडतात. इन केस ऑफ हायड्रिला इट इज पोअरली डेव्हलप. सेकंडरी वास्क्युलर टिश्यू इज नेव्हर डेव्हलप, सेकंडरी जे वास्क्युलर टिश्यू आहेत ते प्रॉपर डेव्हलप होत नाही, म्हणजे सेकंडरी ग्रोथ या प्लांट मध्ये सापडत नाही. इन्क्रीज इन एरेशन. देन स्टोमॅटा आर टोटली अब्सेंट ऑर व्हेस्टिजियल, स्टोमॅटाचं फार जास्त काही फंक्शन नाही, व्हेस्टिजियल म्हणून ते ऑर्गन सबमर्ज प्लांट मध्ये आहे. आणि स्टोमॅटा आर कन्फाइन्ड टू अपर एपिडर्मिस इन केस ऑफ द लीव्स of rooted but floating hydrophyte. In amphibious plants, stomata are scattered on aerial portion. Amphibious plant मध्ये मात्र स्टोमॅटा हा स्कॅटर्ड असतात, एरियल पोर्शन मध्ये वरच्या भागाला सापडतात. रूट स्टेम लीव्स आर मोस्ट ऑफ मोस्ट हायड्रोफाइट्स हॅव एअर चेंबर, त्यांच्यामध्ये एअर चेंबर्स असतात. अँड these chambers store gas like CO2 and oxygen, help in respiration and photosynthesis. Beside the air chamber, help in buoyancy and provides the mechanical support. Buoyancy maintain करतो म्हणजे weight balance करतो, particularly in case of hydrophyte. Then some of the physiological adaptations that is seen. Besides their adaptations in the morphological and anatomical character, hydrophytes also show physiological adaptation. Just like osmotic concentration of cell sap are low, cell sapचं osmotic concentration याच्यामध्ये कमी होतं. No transportation from submerged plant. Photosynthetic and respiratory gases are retained in air chambers for the photosynthetic and respiratory activity. Transpiration याच्यामध्ये होत नाही. So these are the important physiological changes that is seen in case of hydrophyte. Now we are taking example as like in your syllabus there are two plants are given. One is there that is the Hydrilla and another one that is the Nymphaea. So in Hydrilla it is a submerged rooted hydrophyte and it is a monocot plant and that belongs to family Hydrocarataceae. So it shows following morphological adaptations, anatomical adaptations of ecological interest. Just like the plant body of Hydrilla is completely submerged in water and rooted in mud. Mud मध्ये rooted आहे. So it is a submerged rooted hydrophyte. The plant is poorly developed. Plant हे poorly developed आहे and nourishment is derived from through the body surface. Nourishmentला याला conducting tissueचं जास्त काम नाही. Body surface मधूनच nutrient plant काय करतो water मधून absorb करतो. Stem is long, slender, flexible. Then leaves are thin, translucent and coated with wax. The wax coating protect the leaves from mechanical and physical injury. त्यापासून wax generally wax त्याला काय करतो protect करतो. Then these are the Hydrilla plant that we can see under the water, that is under the tank. एखाद्या tank मध्ये generally किंवा water river body मध्ये Hydrilla अशा प्रकारे वाढतात. So what are the anatomical adaptations that is seen in case of the Hydrilla? That the anatomical features of Hydrilla is well studied in TS by taking TS of particularly stem. So it has a four portion, that is the epidermis, then cortex, then endodermis and vascular tissue. Now in this section you can see these four portions are there: epidermis, cortex, endodermis and thereafter vascular tissue. Now epidermis is the outermost layer and it is made up of single layer of radially elongated tubular compactly arranged cells. So cuticle is very thin or absent. त्या ठिकाणी दाखवलं जनरली epidermis हा single layer चा असतो, thin असतो. Cuticle इथे दाखवलं नाहीये. So cuticle is absent in this. Then cortex. Cortex is the major part of stem, grow below the epidermis and is made up of 2 to 3 layer compactly arranged cell. That is, they are spherical to oval, thin-walled cell just below the epidermis, and few of them are having intercellular spaces. त्यांच्यामध्ये intercellular spaces असतात. Rest of the cortex is made up of large air chambers toward the periphery and small toward the center. आता जनरली जर याच्यातले जर आपण एअर चेंबर्स पाहिले तर पेरिफेरीला मोठे असतात आणि सेंटरला थोडे आकाराने लहान असतात. सो दे आर हॅव्हिंग सेपरेशन, दॅट इज कॉल्ड डायफ्रॅगम. त्याला डायफ्रॅगम असं म्हणतात. सो cortex has large number of air chambers. Air chambers are larger to the surrounding and particularly smaller to the center. Centerला small asतात. So this is nothing but the cortex structure that is seen. Then after air chambers are separated from each other by a thin walled singly arranged parenchymatous cell that is called as diaphragms. त्याला diaphragms असं म्हणतात. So diaphragms नी काय करतात, diaphragm आपण म्हणतो किंवा diaphragm म्हणा. So by this way they are separated from each other. The next structure is there, that is the endodermis. So endodermis is the innermost layer of the cortex. It is poorly developed and it is made up of thin walled parenchymatous cell. त्यापासून ते बनले असेल. जनरली सगळे याच्यामध्ये जे सेल्स आपण पाहिले हायड्रोफाइट मध्ये जनरली मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर parenchymatous. बरेचसे ते काय असतात, parenchymatous असतात. Then vascular tissue, it is present just below the endodermis. It is very much reduced. Vascular tissue is very much reduced. A large cavity in the center. Center मध्ये large cavity आहे, represent the xylem. This cavity is developed due to reduction in several xylem element. बरेचसे xylem elements reduce होतात, त्यामुळे हे structure त्याच्यापासून produce होतं. The phloem is present in large amount. Phloem कसा असेल, जास्त प्रमाणात large amount मध्ये generally phloem present असेल. Phloem is surrounded in between these. आता इथं फ्लोएम दाखवताना हे मध्ये मध्ये जे आहेत ते टिश्यू जे आहेत ते फ्लोएम आहेत. So these are the phloem, and surrounding to this there is having nothing but the endodermis. Then what are the important ecological adaptations that is seen in case of Hydrilla? One is there, that is epidermis is made up of thin walled cells. Epidermis जो आहे तो thin walled cell पासून बनला आहे. Cuticle is poorly developed or absent. Cutically poorly developed आहे किंवा absent आहे. Large number of air chambers are present in the cortex. Air chamber cortex मध्ये जनरली काय large number of air chambers जे air chambers are present in the cortex. Cortex मध्ये air chamber particularly air chambers present hai. Air chambers are separated by diaphragms. Cortex is absorbed mechanical tissue. Then endodermis is poorly developed and made up of thin walled cells. Vascular tissue are reduced. Vascular tissue reduced hota. Xylem is represented by a central cavity in the center, and phloem is present in large amount as compared to xylem. So these are the adaptation that is seen in case of the Hydrilla. So another adaptation that is seen in case of Nymphaea. So another plant is there, that is Nymphaea. So in Nymphaea, if we see, Nymphaea is rooted hydrophyte with floating leaves. They have floating leaves, and it is a dicot plant, and that belongs to family Nymphaeaceae. So it shows following morphological adaptation. That is, the plant body is completely submerged in water, rooted in mud. Plant body ही submerged है, rooted mud मध्ये rooted आहे. But leaves are with the long flexible, and flowers are long with long shoot. Flower है long shoot वर असतात, float on the water surface. Water surface वर float होतात. Stem is rhizomatous type, rhizome type stem आहे. So that stem is directly connected to petiole. Then floating leaves are large, flat, with their upper surface coated with wax. Their petioles are long. Petiole याच्यामध्ये long आहे, flexible आहे, often covered by the mucilage. Flowers are large and float on water surface. Their stalks are long. The stalks long असतात, flexible, and when covered with mucilage. Generally mucilaginous substances त्याला covering असतं. So this is the Nymphaea. बरेच वेळा पाहतो आपण कमळ जे आहे ते मोठ्या सरोवरामध्ये पर्टिक्युलरली किंवा तलावामध्ये जनरली वाढतात. So anatomical adaptations or features of ecological interest in case of Nymphaea, that is it show again epidermis, hypodermis, and ground tissue, and then vascular bundle. So these are the four structures that is seen in case of Nymphaea. Epidermis is the outermost layer, and it is single layer, thin walled, green, compactly arranged, barrel shaped cells, and thin cuticle is found. आता बरेच वेळा याच्यामध्ये thin cuticle असते किंवा cuticle absent असते. A few multicellular unbranched hairs are present on the outer surface. बरेच वेळा याच्या outer surface ला काय असतात, hairs त्याच्यामध्ये present असतात. So generally they are having the epidermal hairs to the outside. Epidermal hairs त्याच्यामध्ये generally दिसतात. Then after if we see the another adaptation, that is the hydrophyte hypodermis. Now it is present just below the hypodermis, epidermis. It is made up of 2 to 3 layers, 2 to 3 layers त्याच्यामध्ये आहे, of hexangular or pentangular compactly arranged collenchymatous cells. हे collenchymatous cells generally त्याच्यामध्ये hypodermal region ला असतात. जर आपण hypodermis जर याचा पाहिला तर pentangular cell असे याच्यामध्ये 2 लेयर, एक किंवा 2 लेयर hypodermis चा याच्यामध्ये सापडणार. So these are nothing but called as the hypodermal region. हे याला आपण hypodermal region असं म्हणणार. Then next is there, that is the ground tissue. The ground tissue extending from hypodermis up to the center, they are called as ground tissue. And ground tissue कसे आहे, parenchymatous आहे, thin walled आहे, and having intercellular spaces and air chambers त्याच्यामध्ये जास्त प्रमाणात आहेत. Certain hairs are branch, unbranched structure त्याच्यामध्ये present आहे, and they are having internal hairs. त्याच्यामध्ये internal hairs असतात. They are called as trichosclerites, and they are containing nothing but deposition of calcium carbonate substances. ते काय करतात, कॅल्शियम कार्बोनेटचे डिपॉझिशन करतात. हे बघा इथे टाकले स्लेराइड्स. Spheroids are present in between these air chambers at the internally याच्या आतमध्ये present असतात. Then next one is there, that is the vascular bundle. आता vascular bundle म्हणजे large vascular bundles with 2 groups of phloem on either side of xylem. They are present toward the center मध्ये असतात, and small vascular bundles in one group of phloem toward the outside. दोन प्रकारचे vascular bundle आहे. One is nothing but here At the surrounding, they are called phloem containing, and at the center there is containing xylem as well as phloem. दोन्ही त्याच्यामध्ये आहे. So these are having xylem. These xylem bundles आहेत. Xylem surrounded by phloem. This type of particular vascular bundles are there, but xylem is particularly poorly developed in case of the Nymphaea. These are the adaptations, major ecological adaptation that is seen in case of Nymphaea. Epidermis with thin-walled cells, poor thin cuticle or cuticle absent, presence of green cells in epidermis, mechanical tissue are reduced, ground tissue with large number of air chambers. Vascular bundles are very much reduced. Xylem is in the form of small lacune or cavity, and phloem is well developed, and presence of internal hairs. So these are the ecological adaptations that is seen in case of, particularly in case of hydrophytes. So this is all about the hydrophytic adaptation.